Hey, and welcome back to another strategy and gameplay guide with ProGuides.com. I'm Vincent Grand with ProGuides.com, and this video is going to go over an Ocean Mage build that goes a little bit wrong and how you can recover to try to still get the win. But first, I'd like to remind you to click on the link below and take a look at the updated ProGuides.com. If you want to learn more about teamfight tactics, ProGuides will always have info on the newest patches, best builds, and strategies. There are all kinds of different resources from top players available to help you be the best player that you can be, including coaching, so make sure to check out ProGuides.com using the link in the description below. So for Ocean Warden Mages, we want to have 4 Oceans, 4 Wardens, 3 Mages, and 2 Mountains. There's a couple of variations on this, and this build really revolves around the brand. So in this set, as you can see, he's got the Death Cap, he's got a Spear of Sojin, so he's got extra mana recovery, and he's also got a Seraph's Embrace so that he can just keep regenerating mana faster and faster to pump out ultimates on a very short cooldown. Now, in addition to that, we've got a Malphite frontlining, and in particular, I'd like to point out the placement of these. So Malphite's in there with the Thieves' Gloves, and the Nautilus is positioned to the far side of Brand. So if the enemy has a Diver and Assassin that ends up back here, the Nautilus's ultimate seeks out the furthest enemy away. So it's going to be a toss-up between the enemy's backline carry on the far left or a Diver that comes in at the Brand or the Nami. Now, in addition to that, we've got Malphite, who's going to provide crowd control on the left side of the map, and the Amumu, who's going to provide crowd control on the right half of the map. He's also got a Guardian Angel, so he's able to get more ultimates off. Ideally, he can get 2 or even 3, and allow Brand to pump out more and more consistent damage with his ult that bounce all over the map. So let's jump into a gameplay video and see that even though we were going for this, you won't be able to get the perfect set of items or even champions every single time. So if Brand is in here pumping out all this damage, what do we do if we can't find him? What do we do if we can't get him 2-starred? And what do we do if we can't get him rolling at all, or at least until way too late in the game? We want to still be able to recover, go deep into a game, at least get top 4, and ideally push for that win, and ultimately win more games. How do we do that? Let's jump in and take a look. We're going to go through a variation on the Ocean Mage comp and talk about some of the early game strategies, what our intended build is going to be, what happens if we get off track, if we don't get the items, or if we don't get some of the champions that we are looking for, if we aren't able to get it all according to plan. What do we do? How do we get back on track? So to start things off, we're here in the ProGuides.com Tft Team Builder. It's completely free. Once you make an account, you can jump in here and plan out what you want to do in terms of your team, your champions, your synergies, and as well as your items. So you can get a good reference point, have it on hand, on your phone, on your second screen, so that you can refer to it while you're playing the game. Now, in this comp, we're going to be running Ocean Warden Mage, and our front line here, it's got a lot of CC and defense, while our back line has a lot of AoE damage and rapid fire spells, particularly in our Brand, which is going to be the intended carry. Though in this video, we're going to discuss what happens if you can't get to him, and if you can't get all these other pieces to come together, either by the time you get to late game, or if you can't get them together at all, what do you do to still keep your game on track and to not get knocked out in the bottom 4 placements? Now, before we can get to our fully constructed late game build, we're going to need to do a little bit of work and have some planning into the early stages for what we want to do and how we're going to synergize to get there. So for this build, we want Wardens and we want Ocean, pretty straightforward, but we also want to select those so that they can carry items properly for us and transition into the late game. So here we're going to be transitioning out the Morellos onto the Amumu by late game, but in the meantime, it's a great fit on Nasus as he's very strong. He makes good use of both pieces. The extra health is good on him, and the AP for his ultimate gives him a little bit of extra power, and the burn damage is quite good as well. Be prepared to sell him off in the mid to late game and transition those items over. Similarly, since Vlad is a pretty good early to mid game champion, but he is going to get rotated out, and now the reason he does get rotated out in the late game is because he's a single target champion versus the Syndra, who does splash AoE damage across an entire section of the enemy team. So Vlad's coming out, but that also makes him a great fit to hold the early game items that are going to end up on our carry, maybe a Vigra or a Brand for later in the game. So he can hold those to start, and the Blasting Rod is most likely going to turn into a Death Cap, while the Tear of the Goddess can either turn into the Spear of Sojin for extra mana regeneration, or Seraph's Embrace for pretty much the same reason. To round out this early game comp, we also want Talia. She provides much needed crowd control, a CC, a stun effect to this team. She'll also synergize very well with Malphite coming in a little bit later in the game for that Mountain Shield.
So just one last quick look at what our team's going to look like later on. We see the items have transitioned over, with Amumu having a lot of survivability since he is coming in late as a 1-star, most likely for some critical rounds in the late game. And we have Malphite positioned to the top left. We want him providing crowd control and stuns to the top left of the map. Amumu, same thing for the top right of the map. And just in general, our Wardens being a very, very strong front line and not letting enemy attackers through, giving our back line more than enough time to burst down or consistently put out damage to burn down an enemy's team. Now, to note, the Nautilus is positioned at the top right corner, as far away as he can be from Brand. The reason for that is that the Nautilus ultimate seeks out the enemy champion that's farthest away, so most likely he'll be ulting one of two spots, either the enemy's backline, the far left corner, or our own back left corner if they've got an assassin that's diving onto our Brand or our Nami. Another point as far as items go is to pick up an early spatula and look towards building the mage cap to make one of your units also a mage. This gives you the option to push towards 6 mages in the scenario where you don't get all of the upgraded 2-star wardens or the high cost wardens that you're ultimately looking for. You can supplement your board's overall power with that mage cap to give the 6 mage bonus, which is double ultimates on all of your mages, and it's very, very powerful on a Malphite who will ult across 2 different locations in the map if he's double ulting, providing that crowd control stun effect to 2 different big areas, as opposed to the Amumu, who isn't as great of a fit for the mage cap because he'll be ulting in the exact same spot twice, stunning people who have already been stunned by his first ultimate. So, Malphite's a better pick. Let's jump in now to some gameplay. We'll take a look at what happens when we don't get some of our late cost items and we're trying to transition and scramble before we lose too much health. So here we can see that we've got items on it. Like I said earlier, it could be the Vladimir, it could be, in this case, the Viger that's carrying the items before the Brand comes in for late game. Luckily in this match, we've gotten great items, just exactly what we want on a magic damage carry. So to get to this point, we had to look for our 2-star units very quickly in the early game. You'll want to look for the Thresh 2-star as soon as possible, as well as getting a second Warden upgraded for that survivability. The mages are very squishy in the early game and they don't provide much support until they get 2-starred, so you'll find yourself rolling. But once you do hit that level 5 basic set of 2 Wardens, 3 mages, 2 Oceans, you'll be able to settle in, let your economy start building up, and you'll want to really, really hold off from spending too much gold because this is an expensive build in the later parts of the game. So you'll want to hold off. The big synergies here come together at around level 7, if not 8. So you'll want to hold on to that gold so that you are able to make it through the late game. Again, we really want to stress that getting the right early game items on a carrier who's going to be able to get you through that late game without burning too much gold or too much HP. Huge key to success and the most effective way to get into the top 4 or into that first place for your extra placement points. In the games that we tested in Diamond for this build and its variations for different champions or different items, we performed extremely well, consistently placing in the top 4. But Ocean Mages isn't brand new, so with the update to 10.1, we wanted to focus on what happens when things come off the rails a little bit and we aren't able to find the Brand. So, Viger is a very good replacement for that if he's got the proper support in place. Having an Ocean board with 4 Oceans gives him enough mana to consistently ult, and if you've got an extra 1 or 2 items that also help his mana generation, you'll be able to consistently pump out those Viger ultimates at a machine gun rate, eliminating enemy opponents from the board at rapid speed. This strategy was able to carry this game deep into the rounds with a very high health pool and a large amount of gold, so we were able to effectively transition what looked like a scuffed early game and mid game into a rather commanding lead. From that point, we were able to transition into our late game with Nami, continue buffing up the Viger, push into top 2 for a win. As you enjoy these highlight videos of the Viger going off and eliminating opponents, remember to focus on collecting the early game item components that you'll need to get this comp fully coming together. Because as in this build and many other high performing builds, the items are absolutely critical, so make sure you're collecting those blasting rods, those mana tiers, and combining them on effective early game carriers so that you can continue to power through and keep your gold high.